Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Are we on?
We are. I think we're on.
Are we on?
We got the thumbs up from Nelson. Hey, Brett.
Hi, Jeff.
How are you? Happy Monday.
I guess we're letting everyone know we're recording.
We're
on a
telling
Monday.
them.
We're letting it out.
Sometimes we record on a Friday, sometimes Monday, sometimes other days of the week.
Other days. Anything ending in a day.
Any day of the week. So,
right.
Brett,
Yes, Jeff.
what are you grateful for?
You.
Well, besides me and besides your family, how about that? No,
Oh,
that's
man.
always, because people always, of course, we're grateful for our family.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just grateful for the life I have.
Yeah, good.
That's it.
I'm grateful for the life you have too. It's because you share it with me. So
yeah.
thank you for that.
Obviously family and as well, but you took that away from me, so.
Yes,
I
I would never take your family away from you.
No, but the answer and the ability
yeah,
to
the
answer
answer is
that.
always my wife, my kids. I mean,
Yes.
those are obvious.
Yes.
I think we're all grateful for our families.
Yes, 100%. But yes, just grateful that every day I get to wake up, I get to live this life that I have, and I get to come in and see these wonderful people.
Yeah.
And-
No, we are fortunate.
Yeah.
You've built a nice space here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. We're able to welcome guests like
I'm glad that you're able to come in and enjoy it.
All right. I'm glad to be a part of it. Okay.
Let's get to our guest who's like, oh my God,
Who is our
why
guest
did I
today?
do this? Why did I do this?
Laura Juanas Maikas. Laura is a multilingual law, regulatory policy, and privacy specialist with over 20 years of professional experience, primarily within the technology, media, cybersecurity, and hospitality sectors. She currently sits on the board of directors of Caixa Bank Payments and Consumer, a leading consumer financing firm in Spain and Portugal. Previously, Laura was the vice president, privacy officer at Restaurant Brands International, also known as RBI, where she developed and implemented a comprehensive privacy program for iconic global brands, which include Burger King, Popeyes, Tim Hortons, and Firehouse Subs. Before joining RBI, she held the role of chief privacy and compliance officer at Constella Intelligence, a prominent cybersecurity company. Additionally, as the global privacy policy director at Facebook, she led a global team providing strategic regulatory guidance on privacy matters. Her extensive experience also includes key positions at Yahoo, where she served as Assistant General Counsel, Privacy and Human Rights, and General Counsel for Yahoo Spain. Laura holds a degree from Universidad Autónoma de Madrid and an LLM from the University of Miami School of Law. She is a strong advocate for women in technology. She is a founding board member of the Women in Tech Miami Council and actively mentors startup and entrepreneurs across South Florida and Latin America. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm glad that it took us a while, but I'm glad we could.
And I want to make
finally make it.
And I want to make it clear to all our listeners that you are appearing here as an individual in your private capacity, not on behalf of RBI or any of the organizations that you serve.
The opinions stated here are of the guest.
Is there some language you'd like to put in?
I think you said it perfectly.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Wonderful.
We'll have that in the show notes.
So did you grow up in Spain? And tell us your path to U.S. law.
So not planned at all, right? In Spain, and like here in the States, the concept of undergrad doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So you finish high school and you decide you go to law school, you go to med school, you go engineering, whatnot. And with enough pressure from my family, I went into law school, which I kind of hated.
You did?
To be perfectly honest.
I didn't like law school either.
Did you have lawyers in your family?
Everyone.
Everyone. There are lawyers.
Really?
So there was a lot of
My
pressure.
father is a judge. We have like one uncle who was an engineer, but everyone else was.
All in Madrid.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
But everyone else
so
was.
So the pressure was not sudden. It was ongoing
It wasn't
throughout the
subtle.
life.
It wasn't insignificant. So, I caved. But it wasn't easy, right? Because I didn't enjoy it at all. And then I tried a few things and I went into private practice. I hate it as well. Sorry, guys. Nothing against private practice. It wasn't for me.
It's not for everyone.
No.
And, I was thinking of reconsidering my choices, perhaps going back to school. And by chance, pretty much I heard of an internship in Yahoo Spain Legal's team. And I applied, and it was definitely a step back, but I said, I'm going to try this. And if not, I'm going to go back to school and do something else.
So this is an internship and you're already out. You're a practicing lawyer.
I was a very junior practicing lawyer.
Right.
But
Okay.
certainly it was taking a step back. But I was so unhappy.
Okay.
So I decided I'm going to give this 6 months and then see what
Okay.
happens. And I loved it. Everything there clicked, right? Yahoo Spain in the early 2000s was like a startup.
Right.
It was 20, 30
Exciting
people
time.
figuring things out, a thriving culture. And everything was very immediate, right? You worked on a contract, the next hour the content was online, right? You worked in a promotion and the next minute the promotion was, it was a very thriving culture. So I really enjoyed it. And
It's like instant gratification.
very much,
Yeah.
very much, which I guess at a younger age,
Oh,
that's
it's nice to have. Yeah,
important,
for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
it's very nice. It's like your work came to life very quickly, and you saw the impact of your work very quickly, which was really, really unique. So I decided not to go back to school, and I stayed and I worked really hard, and I worked with really great leaders. And eventually I grew up in the organization. I became the general counsel eventually at quite young age. I don't know what they were. I don't know what they were thinking. And then my next phase of growth happened when a colleague of mine in the London office went on maternity leave, and she was something I really enjoyed working with and I really respect. So I raised my hand to cover some of her stuff while she was away. And what she was doing at the time was what we call now, and you see many job descriptions how it's called legal product, right? Which was basically doing the legal analysis of the products that we were rolling out around the world and coordinating international reviews. And I just loved that work. That was like it was the coolest thing. So I decided I wanted to dive deeper into that. And
So you call that legal product?
legal products, compliance. That
So it's
was
product compliance.
That
Okay.
was how we refer to it. And
Okay.
still to this day, now you see many openings of, legal product and privacy counsel. So
okay.
that discipline was really emerging in the early 2000s, but still continues to this day.
And that requires obviously knowledge of not just Spanish law, European law, U.S. law, like any across the world.
Right.
And so you were sort of figuring out and having to navigate all of that.
Parsing out the knowledge from the different experts, right? And figuring out the points in common, figuring out where there were differences that you could not reconcile and that you had to take into account. So it was a fascinating job, very multicultural, and it just opened you the world to so many different perspectives, right? About law in different parts of the world, how it's practiced, how it's interpreted. And then again, you saw the impact, right, in the products that were rolled out. It was really exciting, and a little bit, sometime in, a position opened in Yahoo here in Miami for the Americas to do that kind of work for the Americas. It wasn't an easy decision, but I took a leap of faith and decided to take that role. So I came here in 2009.
And here in the U.S., were you is it Miami?
Straight to Miami, where I've been ever since. I never thought I was going to be here for this long. At the time, Microsoft was trying to acquire Yahoo. So I always thought I was going to be here for a year or two, and then they would restructure or whatnot after the deal went through, and eventually I would just get some nice international experience and go back home. But that deal never happened. And I just kept finding joy, and I just kept staying, right? And, 15 years later, here I am.
Wow. And you eventually made a transition from Yahoo to Facebook and other organizations.
Yes.
Tell us about that, because I think, a lot of lawyers in private practice are always curious about the in-house, what it's like in-house. But also, you've now worked at four or five different companies in-house. Are they all the same? What's it like? Is mobility easy? Tell us.
So what happened is, as I was specializing into these product roles, a lot of the issues were becoming privacy. Everything was becoming data privacy. And I started working very closely with the privacy team. So eventually there was an opening there, and I moved to the privacy team at Yahoo, which at the time was outside of legal. Many privacy teams are not part of the legal organization. They're with the tech team, or they were marketing, or it really depends on how the organization is structured. So I moved outside. I moved outside of legal. Certainly having a legal background helps, but it's not the only skills that you need for the job. And I I didn't realize, but I had, again, great mentors, right? And some of the brightest minds of privacy were working at Yahoo at the time. And they really taught me the ropes, they taught me the craft, and they also connected me with the outside privacy world, right? And with some of the great minds of privacy and data protection. And I gradually realized, okay, this is a career.
Privacy itself.
Exactly. Right. Privacy
Data
in and of
privacy.
itself, this is a career.
Well, you saw, my guess is, but when you started, there really weren't a lot of laws on the books that dealt with this. And now you have this evolution of laws, which maybe now is why privacy is it now more focused in the legal side of business? Is it now, because it wasn't, because maybe there were no laws on the books or, that were really focused on it, but now maybe there are. And
that's a great question. I think there's certainly much more attention from legal teams on privacy issues because certainly non-compliance with privacy laws have very hefty consequences that didn't have at the time, right? When I started working on these issues, certainly, the predecessor of GDPR existed. Some privacy laws were being developed in Latin America, which is kind of what led me to start digging into privacy matters. Today, certainly it's a top priority for many legal departments, but you still see privacy teams outside of legal organizations. I'm part of the legal organization now, which I'm really happy because I love working with around it of like-minded people who have the same thinking process and like-minded professionals. But you still see privacy teams in tech organizations or in marketing organizations. Ultimately, it needs to be where under a leader who's going to care about it and who's going to make it, right? Who's going to give the organization the resources and who's going to enable the organization to make the impact that it needs to make, right?
Right. So in working through, general counsel and various areas in different organizations, you work with outside counsel, I would imagine, or hire outside counsel.
Yes, all the time. Thank goodness. Thank goodness for outside counsel.
And we've had some in-house counsel from other businesses on, and one of the things we ask and look for, and maybe our listeners are interested in, is what do you look for? As a two-parter, so you can take it in any order you want. One would be, what do you look for? What are the top things that you look for in outside counsel, and what are the top 5 things you don't want to see, like the bad stuff?
All right.
Let's do the bad stuff first. Do whatever you want.
Look, I think the bad stuff is basically, and I think that's true for everyone, right?
Sure.
I'm sure you've heard this before. Nobody wants to see the 100-page legal memos anymore, right? Nobody wants to. What you're looking for, especially, I would say especially in this field, but I think that's probably true for all fields, you're giving for practical hands-on advice, right? You're looking for a soundboard. You're looking for someone that you can pick up the phone and say, hey, this is the issue I'm facing. Here's how I approach it. What do you think about it? You're looking for someone that you can brainstorm, right? And someone that is going to give you a practical perspective, not someone that's going to recite you back the law. Because we can all read the law, but I think someone in our field, someone that has, in order to give you that practical approach, they need to have the pulse of the regulators. They need to understand how the regulators think, what they're focusing on, what are the latest trends, where is the enforcement, where is the enforcement going. So that, I think you can easily identify when people have that different unique skill that are just going to be like your very helpful soundboard and are going to work with you and are also going to think outside the box with you and maybe bring something to the table that you never thought of, but because they're able to connect the dots, that's the ideal space.
Clarity, creativity, and honesty sounds like, right?
I think you summarized
clear with you, but also
well.
Creative and then honest and succinct. I guess clarity is covered by that. Yeah. So
yes,
well,
exactly.
Not always. You can be clear but long-winded.
Right. True. That's true. Right.
I don't mind the long-winded, right? Because I think privacy requires the conversations sometimes are long because you need to turn things upside down, right, and left until you nail down the issue. So sometimes long-winded is inevitable, right?
And privacy, especially in tech, is still evolving. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so there are situations that have never come up before.
Absolutely.
That have to be sort of analyzed. And I would imagine that those are complicated conversations to have. You want to have a conversation. You don't want to have somebody recite
exactly.
the law to you.
Exactly.
Right? You want to have a conversation.
It's more about how do we think of what the law says in this particular scenario, right? And if worse comes to worse, how is this particular regulator going to think about it? And what about this approach versus this other approach?
Gotcha. And so I don't know if you said the bad thing. You said you don't want long memos and you don't want someone regurgitating the law back to you. When you find a lawyer that you like, it's somebody who's giving you all the things we talked about: honest feedback, open communication,
practical,
brainstorming,
practical,
creativity. And I assume you find someone like that, you're going back to them,
absolutely,
repeatedly.
And you're recommending them.
And you're recommending them to your
colleagues. That's the other thing, right? You're going back to them and you're definitely spreading the word because we're all learning together, right? This is a discipline where you learn every day. We're all together in this journey, and when you find a good resource, you certainly there's no competition here, right? So when you find a good resource, you want everyone to know about it.
Right, great, fantastic. And have you seen a difference in your practice moving from, because you were in technology most of your career, and now you're in a restaurant industry, which I know I understand it employs technology, but is it similar or different? Tell us.
It's similar and different, right? I think the incredible thing is having the privilege of working with these amazing brands that everybody knows, right? And transitioning from companies that sold digital, right, to a company that the products, you can actually see them, you can touch them, you can eat them, right? You can go to a store, or in this case, a restaurant, right? It's a brick and mortar operation. So the incredible privilege of bringing that experience, but adapting it to a completely different reality, a completely different business, and also getting to understand and learn the franchising business, which is something I had never dealt with before, is such a privilege. But at the end of the day, no matter where you are, right? Whether I think privacy is a journey for everyone, right? We're all learning as we go, and I don't think you can say, because technology keeps changing, the law keeps changing, so we can't really say that everyone has figured everything out, right? You just have to be ready to continue to learn and adapt and rinse, repeat, right?
Rinse, repeat. Right?
Yeah.
I like that.
So you went from the tech being the product, right, and sort of developing that to get more users, to the tech supporting the customer experience in the product. How has that sort of been different for you, right? Because tech and privacy are still, as you said, super important in the food services industry as it is in the tech industry, but it's different, right? Because you have customers coming, swiping their credit cards and typing in their information and all that stuff. So there's just is it different, or is it just same concern, same issues?
I think the issues are the same, right? I mean, the issues as you analyze them and as you look into them are not necessarily very different. It's just technology being used in different ways and different kinds of technology, and learning about different types of technology, right, that are used in different environments. But when it comes to the discipline itself.
When you say the discipline, you're talking about privacy.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Right.
When it comes to the discipline, you're saying it's the same no matter what, whether you're selling hamburgers or social media.
Right. I mean, your approach as you're doing privacy analysis doesn't change, right? I mean, you still have to understand the risks, assess, mitigate, put controls in place, right? So the art doesn't change, right? Yeah. You apply it differently as you go into every business, and you adapt to different cultures, but the privacy work in and of itself is, you can take it very much from organization to organization.
Gotcha.
Right?
Maybe we should have done this before, back out a little on just the concept of privacy, because it's a term we throw around all the time. And I think as lawyers, most of us understand privacy issues, but what does it mean? What are we talking about? Data privacy. We're talking about... you answer. Better you answer than me to try.
So you think of privacy as the very broad concept, right? The right to your intimate space.
Right.
Whether it's your house, whether it's your car, whether it's your correspondence. There's actually the first written piece of modern privacy is a Harvard Law Review article by Justices Brandeis and Warren in the late 1800s. It's called the right to privacy. And it's written in the context of the first portable cameras, right?
okay.
And the
Right.
invasion, what was considered an invasion at the time of portable cameras and the first paparazzis, right?
Taking
pictures, right? And, displaying the private life of individuals. So fast forward, right, to computer processing, fast forward to large computer processing, the 60s, the 70s, the concept of data privacy, right, is the application of that notion of the protection of your intimate sphere, the protection of your intimate space applied to data, right? And the creation of rules to govern the usage of that data in a way that respects your fundamental right. So when we talk about privacy, data privacy, that's what we refer to, and that's what laws aspire to protect, right? When they're implementing all of these requirements, ultimately the good that they're aspiring to protect is the protection of your intimate space,
right?
Whether that's digital, in this case, digital.
So
right?
I equate it to sort of your exterior, and obviously not your face and your body as you're clothed, of course. As you're walking around outside, you're not really private anymore because anyone can snap a picture and post it, right? Without you even knowing, or you're on camera all the time. But to me, the privacy is on the inside. It's the data. It's the substance and what you're thinking, and same thing with your data, to me, is where really the privacy is. And obviously those laws are continuing to evolve, but what do you see, if you can enlighten us, what do you see as sort of next in that, like what's coming next that we may not see that you see given you're in this world in terms of data privacy and the tech and all that?
I mean, I think the next big thing that we're dealing with already is AI.
AI.
Right.
Misinformation, AI, like to me they go together, but maybe not. Maybe they're completely different.
They definitely can go together, right? But AI, to be accurate and to be reliable, needs a lot of data, right? But on the other hand, we have privacy laws that restrict the circumstances in which data can or should be collected or should be used, right? Or should be, let me say, reused, right? You already have it, but you want to use it for something else. So there's conflict. There's an inherent conflict there, which is not new, right? I would say 10, 20 years ago, we talked about big data. It was the same thing. Right? And there's an inherent tension between the advancement of technology and its need for data, including personal data. And we're going to have to figure out how we strike that balance. And I think I wouldn't say that's the next big thing. It's like, because we're living it. Right? We're living
it's
it
the
like
current big thing.
Yeah. Right now, it's the current big thing. And I would say
but we don't have a solution yet. Right?
No, and it is slowly making its way into more and more parts of our daily lives.
Right.
Yes,
right.
it is.
Some we know about and some we don't even know about.
Right. Like any piece of technology, it's starting to. And I think the other big thing, which we're also living today, is security, right? It's figuring out how to keep information safe, right? And keep information in the right hands. That's also a challenge. It's always been, right? But it continues to be a challenge.
Data breaches,
exactly.
Keeping information secure. I mean, same thing. It's privacy, but it's a little different, right? It's keeping it secure from others.
Exactly.
Whereas privacy is a misuse by the company that has it, in part.
Right. But if they allow a security breach, they've
correct, 100%.
Right.
But
so that's
so they go hand in hand.
They always say there's a saying that it's like you can have security without privacy, right? Think about oppressive regimes, right? Know everything about you, and you can have a lot of security, but you have zero privacy. But you can't have it the other way around. You cannot have privacy without security.
Right. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
That's where both worlds converge.
Right.
And that's why it's something that it is an ongoing challenge, right?
Well, and the storage too, right? As every day there's more and more and more data.
Yes.
It's like, where's that going to go?
Where is that warehouse?
Just one. Just one.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, paper, obviously there's a limit, right? I mean, at some point, the storage becomes too small and the paper keeps piling up, and then you have to figure out, okay, do I need these records anymore? Do I, shred them and recycle them or not? But with data, it just sits and continues to accumulate at such a massive rate, you know?
That's right. And I'm no expert in this field, but it's certainly, there's plenty of people studying the environmental impact
Sure.
of
100%,
of that storage capacity and how, what is the, as we continue to accumulate data, as we continue to need data, that has to be somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It has to live somewhere, and that has an environmental impact. I'm no expert on it, but certainly there's plenty of very smart people.
Well, I'm going to
thinking about
I'm going to be upset if I'm on a trail and I see a shed with servers in them.
Data servers.
Just because they need room, right? I mean, is that the next on the mountain? Is
I
that the
think
next
you're
thing?
okay.
You think so? I hope so.
I think you're probably okay.
I hope so.
Wow.
What-
Yeah, these are hot issues. Not easy.
No. The one thing, if we have 2 minutes to talk about, is the women in tech.
Oh yeah, I did want to.
I really do want to touch on that because I think that's amazing. And tell us about
Women in Tech Miami.
We're going to talk over each other. That's great. Let's just do that. No, the listener will love it. Let's do it together.
We were
1,
saying
2, 3 women in tech. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I mean, I think still to this day, only 25% of the workforce in tech is women.
25%.
About
Right.
25%. And of that 25%, I think about 2% is Latina, about 2% is Black. So, but technology is used equally, right? By men and women, roughly. So think of all the perspective that we're missing, right? All of the opportunities that we just don't know what we don't know because we don't have enough perspectives around the table. And when it comes to founders, it's even worse. I think it's like 12, 13% of technology founders are women. So imagine all of the great ideas, all of the creativity, all of the different perspectives that we're leaving on the table. And that's a loss for everyone, not just for women. It's a loss for men and women together. So that's why some years ago, when the tech sector was even smaller in Miami, some friends, we decided to get together and create a forum for mid-level to senior women in technology, because there's not that they're sufficient, because obviously there's still a huge gap, but there were very good efforts in place to get women into STEM, right? To look at the entry level. But then once they got there, right, there was at the time, at least not here in South Florida, there wasn't a place where they could connect.
And no mentors either. No female mentors.
And
right?
exactly.
Right.
And,
No guides,
and very
no leaders.
few, right? You become what you see to a certain point. And there were very few opportunities to, unless you found someone in your own organization, there just were very few and far between opportunities to connect and to share experiences from women from different technological backgrounds. So that's what we, decided to put in place. And it was a little bit of, just finding, who we knew, who we could get together, where we could put together an event, what speaker could we bring, who would throw in some money for coffee and pastries, and who we want to sponsor. And little by little, we got to create, I think we have curated and created very good opportunities to showcase women, right? And for these women also to connect amongst themselves and find a space to see each other and to talk to each other and to share challenges. And we have all kinds of events like open to men and women, right? Because we do think that we can't solve it alone, right? We need to bring everyone on board.
Together,
and we need everyone to realize that we're just going to be better off.
Yeah.
I love it.
So that's the story.
That's great. And you started that, when did you say it was?
So I was still at Yahoo. So that's going to be 10, 11 years ago, at least.
And it's still going strong.
Amazing.
That's fantastic.
And have you seen the numbers grow in those 10 or 11 years?
What we do is we've seen, because what we do is we curate events, right? That's what we do. We select what we're targeting and then we curate. We have never been about membership or about reaching as many people. But what we want to do is understanding also the resources that we have. And, we all work full time, right? Some of us are mothers, have family. So what we decided to do is choose how we could be impactful. And every time we design and we curate, we target and bring selected people. So in that sense, I can't say I see increasing numbers. What I see is that the industry is growing, right? And it has become easier to find women to showcase. It has become easier to find a leader to come because there is more.
Right. So the gender gap is closing a little.
And the tech industry is growing here as well, right? So you have more tech jobs. And inevitably, thank goodness, right, some very phenomenal women working in those tech jobs.
Well, that's great. And hopefully those women that are getting into tech at a low level will continue and rise up to be either founders or C-suite or executives.
Exactly.
And mentors to the next generation.
Correct.
Too.
And that's how it happens, right?
Right.
Yeah. And sponsors, like you said. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. That's awesome.
Well, that's great work. Thank
Laura,
you for doing that.
Thank you for all that you do. It's really amazing. I understood most of it. Just kidding. I can use some more lessons. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, which I really doubt because I just loved it, please leave us a 5-star review. Brett is laughing. Leave us a 5-star review. Share the show. Subscribe and save. Reach out to Nelson. Reach out to Laura. Say hi to Brett. Say hi to me. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It was great.
Thanks, Nelson. And thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.